From Vermont Public, this is The Frequency. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. It's Friday, March 8th, and here are today's headlines. Governor Phil Scott says the unusually high number of school budgets that got voted down Tuesday should serve as a, quote, wake-up call for Vermont legislators. In his first media briefing since town meeting day, Scott told reporters yesterday that it's time for lawmakers to take another look at some of the cost containment proposals he's put forward in the past.
So I know it's uncomfortable to talk about money and spending, especially when it comes to our kids' education. But the fact is, we have to be realistic about what people can afford.
Scott says the legislation could rein in education costs by reforming teacher health benefits, increasing the staff-to-student ratio in schools, and instituting penalties for districts that overspend. Scott also wants lawmakers to consider a statewide approach to education spending instead of leaving budget decisions to local school boards. And on that front, some Vermont legislators say it's time to rethink entirely how the state funds and manages its education system. Voters shot down nearly one-third of all school budgets on town meeting day, after being asked if they should consider nearly double-digit property tax increases to support their schools. Peter Conlon is chair of the House Education Committee. Last month, he told his committee the proposed property tax hikes represent a major inflection point for Vermonters. And yesterday, on Vermont Edition, Conlon said the town meeting results drive that point home.
We need to take a relook at our funding system. We need to look at what it is we think we should have statewide as a school system. We've gotten a very sobering look at our school facilities. So I think our mandate is to both look short-term and long-term at strategies to bend the cost curve.
Key cost drivers include soaring health insurance premiums, inflation, special education, and the winding down of federal pandemic-era aid. Governor Phil Scott yesterday requested the Biden administration issue a major disaster declaration for storms that swept through Vermont in mid-January. If granted, the declaration would allow Chittenden, Essex, Franklin, Lamoille, and Orleans counties to recoup up to three-quarters of the costs of repairing public infrastructure damaged during the storms. That includes costs tied to power restoration, debris removal, road and public building repairs, and staff overtime, that according to a news release from the governor's office. Federal assessors say public entities statewide weathered more than $2.3 million in damages from the January storms. Support staff and technical employees at Porter Medical Center in Middlebury are joining a growing number of staffers collectively bargaining with their Vermont hospital employers. Several hundred Porter employees voted Wednesday to form a union. Maya Schnell is a radiology technologist and one of the union organizers. She says as a small rural community hospital, Porter is short-staffed and employees are not paid as well as those at big hospitals.
I remember talking to one of the guys that works in linen, and he just said he was alone on a shift and he had to do 800 pounds of laundry by himself in a shift because nobody else came in a night. And I think a lot of us at Porter shoulder a lot of that. We carry a lot of weight because we care about our community.
Snell says her hope is that through collective bargaining, support staff and technical employees feel heard and valued. A spokesperson for Porter Medical Center says it respects employees' right to form a union and that, quote, every single one of our employees is central to delivering exceptional patient care. Coming up, how climate change is making seasons shorter and tougher for cross-country skiers. That's after this.
The Frequency is supported by MVP Healthcare, offering Medicare Advantage plans made for Vermont and guided by doctors. In partnership with the UVM Health Network. Info at uvmhealthadvantage.com.
The regular season for high school cross-country skiers wrapped up last week with the last statewide meet of the year in Craftsbury. It was a spotty season. Athletes spent weeks anxiously awaiting the first snowfall deep enough to ski on, as they have the last couple of winters. As Vermont Public's Adia Golston reports, climate change is making Vermont's winters shorter and warmer, limiting how long athletes can spend on their skis each season.
As the sun set outside Montpelier High School on a recent Thursday, stadium lights illuminate a group of impatient cross-country skiers waiting at the starting line for their race.
Racers on your mark, go!
Skiers launch forward on the short course, skis gliding over freshly groomed snow. A race like this wasn't possible in Montpelier in January, In December, the high school was blessed with what now seems like a rare gift: snow blanketing the campus's fields, rooftops, and trees. But Montpelier's head coach Brian Carlson says it quickly melted away, disrupting the team's plans.
Well, I think we had to miss a couple of our first races on the schedule because there just wasn't snow yet.
Large swaths of Vermont just had their warmest winter on record. And though higher elevations have had near normal snowfall, valleys across the Green Mountain State have been bare for much of the season. That disrupted training schedules for established athletes and prevented prospective skiers from fully getting into the sport. And it's not a new trend. Carlson says after 5 years of coaching, he expects to have a stretch of time every season where they have to take a break from skiing.
A lot of times it just comes down to a couple of inches, a couple of nights of thaw that can really make the difference, in terms of wiping us out or keeping us going.
Kate Hell is a postdoc studying snow hydrology at the University of Vermont. She says the winter season is shrinking in Vermont due to climate change.
Snow on is occurring almost 2 weeks later on average in the year, and snow off is now occurring about a week earlier in the spring.
On top of the shrinking length of the season, Vermont's looking less and less like a New England winter wonderland when there is snow on the ground. This past December and January, Vermont saw a lot of rain relative to historic averages.
Essentially, we're getting this warm precipitation on top of a cold snowpack, and that induces melt really efficiently and effectively. And so we might have, a somewhat shallow snowpack that can disappear overnight by way of rain inducing snowmelt.
Vermont's snowpack depth has declined about 13% between 1965 and 2022. During stretches of no snow, cross-country ski coaches use other ways to keep their athletes' fitness and interest in the sport up. Maureen Vauchin was a junior on Montpelier's team this year. She said they did a lot of dry land training during these periods.
We'll go on runs or bike rides, or we'll go and do some strength. And so while we're not on snow getting accustomed to that, we still are getting stronger, building both our strength and, building community in this team.
This can be a rough period for a lot of athletes, lacking the excitement of speeding down a snow-covered slope or discovering a new terrain. Skiers are also increasingly facing more slushy, wet snow, like Montpelier's team did during a recent practice. Montpelier's assistant coach, Jason Serrato Winston, says poor quality snow can be a drag.
It changes everything. It changes how fast the snow is. It changes how saturated the snow is with water. It changes the type of wax that we use. And then it changes the experience of the skiers.
This feeling's known all too well in South Burlington, where nothing about the high school's campus signals winter over the last couple months. Least of all, the puddle-ridden football field surrounded by mud and dead grass. Matthew Powers says throughout their time as an athlete and now coach with South Burlington's Nordic team, they could train at the school's campus at least once a week or more, if the snow was good. But that wasn't the case this season.
Let's get packed up. It's 4 o'clock. We'll see if the bus is pulled up yet.
Instead, the team had to travel to snow, like they did for a recent practice at Sleepy Hollow Ski Center near Huntington.
Because it's difficult to get buses every day, to have kids out that late every day, usually as late as 7. We've been skiing only around 3 times a week, where it'd be more ideal to ski every day. I mean, that's our sport.
But traveling isn't a silver bullet either. When they do train, outgoing South Burlington senior Molly Levy says the late-night travel can be mentally taxing.
I'm in AP classes, and it's definitely pretty stressful to have to bus that far every day and get home at 7:30 sometimes at the latest, and then be stuck with a bunch of homework. That's definitely taxing on my mental health.
Despite the hurdles, Power says traveling is crucial to athletes' improvement.
Time on snow is the biggest predictor of like how well you're going to do in this sport. And when you're on snow, you're having more fun and you're building the skills and technique necessary to like elevate how good you are at skiing, how good you are at this sport, in a way that we just can't do on pavement or on dirt.
Montpelier's team also has to head out of town for snow. A handful of skiers are members of the club team at Craftsbury Outdoor Center, which makes its own snow. But there's fees and transportation costs that come out of an individual's pocket. Montpelier coach Brian Carlson says when they can, they try to take trips with the entire team. But he says it's unsustainable for the future of the sport because of how few places in the state make snow.
If you're not really close to those places, then yeah, that's what worries me because it's hard to make that commitment to travel. It just doesn't make sense to be, for a high school team to be traveling an hour every day to get to snow.
Despite every annoyance that comes at the skiers, the dry training, the travel, the on and off snow, Montpelier's assistant coach, Jason Sirota Winston, says they've learned how to be resourceful and roll with it.
I mean, it's a generation of kids who have gone on through COVID, who have had school and races canceled due to COVID, have learned how to be flexible, which is not to say that they don't observe and react to the changes that are happening all around them. They're smart people they see what's going on in the world.
Still, Nordic skiing, historically at least, has been known as one of the more accessible outdoor staples of Vermont winters. If cross-country skiing becomes less and less approachable here, Sirota Winston wonders what that means for Vermont's identity.
A lot of the best skiers in the world that are Americans have either grown up here or trained here, and that's still the case. So if we lose skiing, would it be a different place? For sure. There are bigger things we should all be concerned about, but it's part of what makes it such a great place, and a great place to live and to raise a family and to grow up.
And he says if Vermont loses that, it would be felt across the state. For Vermont Public, I'm Adia Ghostin.
Thanks for listening to The Frequency today. We had additional reporting from Peter Hirschfeld, Michaela Lafrac, Kevin Trevelin, and Elodie Reed. Our executive producer is Kevin Trevelin, and our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. Talk to you next week.
At a time when information continues to come at us faster and faster, sometimes you need to hit pause and rewind. NPR's Throughline takes you back in time to the source of the news stories filling your feed. Find NPR's Throughline wherever you get your podcasts.